So my name is Connie Amon, and I'm the librarian at Galileo Scholastic Academy, which is a K through 8 school that's located near the University of Illinois.
And how many students are there?
Um, right now we've got about somewhere between 560 and 570 students.
And then overall, what do you think about collaborations like this, with CPS Lives, artists and designers working with Chicago Public Schools?
Well, I have to say, we're pretty busy all the time. So when someone approaches us about, working with a school, we really have to look at, what are the benefits going to be to students and what are the benefits going to be to us. And so, you're always maybe a little leery going in. But I have to say that the staff and students at ID and at Northwestern were like so accommodating, and they really listened to us, and they really listened to our students, and they really tried to accommodate us and our schedules, and really do whatever they could to facilitate this whole process. So it ended up, yeah, there were a few extra emails in my inbox every week, or not. It wasn't even. It was completely not unreasonable. But yeah, there were some extra things that I needed to do. But I think that that the just willingness to collaborate and accommodation by the people, the groups that we were working with, was really nice. So.
What about the students? What was your perception of their experience at Galileo?
Yeah, so our Galileo students, right?
Yes.
Okay. So so one of my really fondest memories of this whole process was the day that the Northwestern students came in and met with first graders and fourth graders to show them their prototypes, and to really ask the kids questions, and they let the kids ask them questions. So it was really interesting to see, these 20-year-old engineering students talking to the 10-year-olds, because they're just coming at the whole thing from really different perspectives. So that was really good. They were really, I think that they got a lot of information from our students, and I think that our students were like, hey, that person looks like just like me, right? Um, they also are Latino, or they're, whatever, they're actually talking to me in Spanish, and, wow, they're at Northwestern. And, I think it helped our kids begin to envision, like, this could be me someday. So, any chance that we have for students to experience that kind of, college and career type experience is really good. And then I didn't have a lot. I wasn't in the actual meetings that the ID students had during the design thinking process. But what I did participate in was kind of the culmination of that process. So the students, my students and the ID students put together with the help of the ID students, put together a presentation for me and admin, where they kind of talked about, their vision for the library. And it was really interesting to hear their voice, to hear their perspective. And I think it was really empowering for them to be able to go to a teacher and say, listen, this is what we'd like to see, because we don't generally ask them those questions, so I think it was really an empowering experience for them, and good experience for them to present their thoughts and their thinking process to us.
And in some ways, you sort of talked about the experience of working with the ID students and Northwestern students just as part of that first question. When you think about the sort of front end of the process of the ideation and coming in and participating in the ideation at ID. How's that different from what you might have done otherwise? Like, how did this sort of change your process?
Yeah, well, it would have been otherwise. It would have been a lot of adults sitting around making decisions without the input of students, and also, there were things that the engineering students thought of, envisioned, that we wouldn't have thought of, right? So because we don't have that, we don't have that perspective, we don't have that background. I'm not an engineer, so it's just not something that I mean, I knew that, the stuff that I was looking at in vendor catalogs was not what I had in mind. But I didn't really have a good idea of, you know, where would we go instead of that. So I think that was really helpful, just like getting a broader perspective, multiple perspectives from people that we wouldn't necessarily be in conversation with.
And then once you were able to use the cards, can you talk a little bit about like what the teachers and the students have learned from that and how that would inform what you might want to do going forward?
Sure. So we started with these utility carts, 3 shelf utility carts that we had around the building, right? Maybe 30 years old, maybe even older than that, who knows? And we the students from Northwestern repurposed those carts with our input, and repurposing had its pros and cons. So some of the things that I think came out, and actually I'm going to go back to this too. One of my another fond memory from this project was watching the 20-year-old Northwestern students running down the hallway with these carts, right? Because like they were trying to emulate what our students might be doing. And, that's what our fourth and fifth graders would be doing with the carts when teachers weren't around, right? So that was just fun, right? And then, so some things that were really helpful were the plexiglass. So what they did was they kind of compartmentalized the carts, and with kind of this idea that they didn't want that we didn't want things to fall off the carts, because the things that we would be putting on them were things that were expensive, robots and other equipment that we didn't necessarily want to like crash on the floor. And so compartmentalized. They compartmentalized the carts, and the plexiglass cart compartmentalization was really helpful, because you could see what was in, it was really easy to see what was in with a clear plexiglass. And then there were other things like, putting kind of edges around the shelving, which was great. But I think that some of the things that we found that were limiting was like the inflexibility of the compartmentalization. Kind of, I mean, even though there were some good things to that, there were also some things that were not so great. Like we were limited in what we could actually then put into those spaces. I think that moving forward, it really helped us to see, like, if we were now going to go out and really spend some money on a pre-made cart from a vendor, what would be the things that we are really looking for? What were things that we were like, they didn't work so well, and what were things that we, before we spent like $3,000 on a cart, what were the things that were really important to us, and what were things that we were going to look for, that were not going to work for it, that we knew were not going to work, right? And we now know those things because of the prototypes that were put together.
And then when you think about what you might have learned about the role of the library, at the school, what are some of the things that you've explored now that you think are really important for other librarians that are working at school, sort of thinking, how do we evolve? How do we continue to sort of grow? What are some of the things at that level of?
Yeah, so I think that number one, incorporating student voice whenever we can is just a really important thing. They really want to see more flexibility, and they want to see, and this might just be me personally too, they really want to see a brighter space and with more flexible seating. And I think that in education, these are things that all educators are moving towards. And so, as funding and other things become available, it's definitely something that we will move towards in terms of the library. But, just again, really listening to kids, and we can't put into place everything that they say, because they're looking at it as a student perspective, where we're looking at it from a teaching perspective and from an accountability perspective. So we do have different things, but I think that there definitely is a space where we can put into I don't know what the right word is, put into use, right? Or, redesign our spaces so that they really become places where kids really, really feel comfortable.
Great. And what about and this is something I didn't think about before, but I'm kind of curious about, and we'll record it and we'll figure out if it lives anywhere. What about
Okay.
Student Voice Committee? What kind of role has that continued to play?
Yeah, so unfortunately we had a year where we didn't have Student Voice last year, but we're definitely, they're part of our school improvement plan moving forward. And we really understand, I think, that that the student voice, and again, they really have wildly different perspectives in some cases than we do, but that it's a perspective that we need to be listening to, and really taking into consideration, because these are the things that while they may not be the things that are most important for us, these the things that the kids are talking about, and the things that these are the things that are really important to them. So moving forward, we are definitely going to be putting together a new committee for next year, and we've taken the step of putting it into our school improvement plan. So I think that this is something that we're really committed to, from all levels, from administration to teachers, to families, and to students. So hopefully we're going to get back on track next year.
Great.